Welcome back to the channel. Today, we'll talk about how you can spot shady motorcycle shops before they rip you off. Let's get started. 10. Marked up parts prices. One of the easiest ways to spot a shady motorcycle shop is when they start inflating the prices of parts. Let's say you walk into the shop for a new clutch lever or maybe a spark plug set, and the mechanic throws you a quote that makes your jaw drop. They're charging $90 for a part that costs $30 online, and that's not including labor. Here's how they get away with it. Most riders aren't cross-checking prices. They assume the shop is sourcing OEM parts straight from the manufacturer, so the cost must be legit. But a shady shop will pad the bill by sourcing cheap aftermarket parts or ordering online themselves, then marking up the price 2 or 3 times without telling you. Red flag tip. If they don't let you keep the old part or show you what they're putting in, they probably don't want you to know what they really used. You might want to start looking for a new place to take your bike to. 9. Inflating labor time. Labor costs are where a lot of shops make their money, and shady ones know exactly how to stretch those hours. For example, say your bike just needs a quick chain adjustment or a throttle cable tweak. That's a 15 to 20 minute job for a skilled tech, but they bill you for the full hour. Why? Because they're banking on you not knowing how long the job should take. Worse yet, they might pile on extra labor for things you didn't ask for, like checking valve clearance when you only came in for a tire swap. Suddenly, your $120 service turns into $400, and the explanation is buried under vague line items like diagnostics or inspection time. If you see labor hours listed for services that weren't requested, or if the time seems excessive for something basic, it's time to start asking for a detailed breakdown. That's how you catch them, because most of these shops can't give you real evidence of these additional charges. 8. Unnecessary oil changes. Here's one that's easy to fall for, especially for new riders: the too frequent oil change. You might have just changed your oil 700 miles ago, but the shop insists it's time again. They'll say things like, "It's a hot running engine," or "This oil breaks down fast," even when your bike's manual clearly says 3,000 to 5,000 miles between changes. Shady shops know oil changes are a low-risk upsell. They're quick, relatively cheap, and most riders won't question them. But over time, those unnecessary oil changes start adding up. And here's the kicker. Some shops won't even swap out your oil filter, or worse, won't change the oil at all and just say they did. Good mechanics will check your oil level and condition before suggesting a change. They'll also ask when it was last done and check the odometer. If they're pushing an oil change every visit without justification, that's a classic scam signal. 7. Premature coolant flushes. If your bike isn't overheating, running rough, or spitting coolant all over the road, odds are your cooling system is just fine. But that doesn't stop some shops from trying to sell you a coolant flush every time you walk through the door. They'll tell you the fluid is old, dirty, or losing its efficiency, even if the bike is still within the manufacturer's recommended interval, which is usually anywhere from 2 to 5 years, not a few months. The trick here is urgency. They'll say it's a maintenance must-have and frame it like you're protecting your engine from a meltdown. The truth? Modern coolant doesn't degrade that quickly unless your system is already compromised. And even then, a shop should be diagnosing the root issue, not slapping on a quick flush and charging you $150 for it. 6. Unnecessary transmission flushes. Now this one's almost laughable, especially if you ride a motorcycle with a manual gearbox, which is most of them. Some shady shops will try to upsell you a transmission flush as if your bike's gearbox needs the same kind of service as a high-mileage SUV. It's a tactic lifted straight from the car world, where automatic transmissions sometimes require fluid replacement. But on a motorcycle, that transmission fluid is usually just your engine oil. So unless your bike has a separate gearbox and a specific maintenance requirement for flushing it, which is rare, the only transmission maintenance you'll likely need is a routine oil change. But a shady shop will act like it's a major procedure, complete with special equipment and high labor costs. They're banking on the fact that you won't know the difference between car maintenance and motorcycle maintenance. 5. Brake pad and rotor replacement. Brake safety is serious business, and shady shops know it. That's why they love using fear to upsell you on new pads and rotors you don't actually need. You bring the bike in for a squeaky front brake, and suddenly they're telling you both pads and rotors are dangerously worn, even if you've only ridden 3,000 miles since your last replacement. The trick is preying on your sense of urgency. They'll use phrases like metal on metal, warped rotors, or unsafe to ride. But what they often won't do is show you the parts. They know if you see the pads still have plenty of thickness, or if the rotors look smooth. You might start asking uncomfortable questions. In some cases, they'll even replace parts that don't need it and keep the originals to avoid getting caught. If all you get is a vague warning and a big quote, chances are you're being taken for a ride, just not the kind you want. 4. Engine treatment additives. You know those little bottles of engine miracle juice? The ones that promise smoother performance, better fuel economy, and a longer engine life? Some shady shops treat them like gold. They'll tack them onto your service bill without even asking, claiming your engine needed it, or that it's standard with every oil change. But the truth is, modern motorcycle engines, especially those running high-quality oil, don't need extra additives. In fact, many manufacturers explicitly advise against using them because they can mess with the oil's chemistry or clog narrow oil passages. But for a dishonest shop, it's easy money. A $3 bottle turns into a $30 upcharge, and it's hard to prove whether it was even added in the first place. Some will go even further and scare you into buying it, claiming your engine sounds dry or that it'll wear out faster without the treatment. That's pure salesmanship, not mechanical advice. If your bike runs fine and you're using the correct oil, there's no reason to start adding mystery chemicals to your engine, especially if they never asked your permission in the first place. 3. Battery replacement. Here's one of the laziest tricks on the list, but still surprisingly common. You roll in for a routine service and they hit you with, "Your battery's dead. We had to replace it." The problem? You never had a starting issue. No slow cranks, no warning signs at all. Maybe the bike's been sitting a while, or maybe they just didn't want to recharge it. Either way, they replaced it without asking. Shady shops love this trick because battery replacements are simple and profitable. They'll slap in a cheap generic battery, charge you full OEM price, and keep the original if it's still salvageable, sometimes reselling it later. Even worse, they often don't test the battery properly. A slow crank from a cold start or a bike sitting idle for a week isn't an automatic death sentence for a battery, but they treat it like one. And they're counting on you not noticing, especially if they toss the old battery before you can even see it. If you didn't authorize it and they can't prove it failed a load test, then you likely just paid for a replacement you didn't need. 2. Tire replacements you don't need. Tires are one of the most critical components of any motorcycle, so when a shop says you need a new set, most riders take it seriously. And that's exactly why shady shops exploit this. They'll claim your tires are worn, dry rotted, cracked, or unsafe, even when they've still got thousands of miles left in them. What they don't count on is you knowing how to read tread depth or tire date codes. If your tires are still within spec, usually anything above 2/32 for illegal limits and more for spirited riding, they're not unsafe. And age-wise, anything under 5 or 6 years with no visible cracking is generally still roadworthy. But instead of showing you actual damage, they'll use vague terms like, "they're getting hard," or "they're starting to go." Some will even wipe your tire down to make it look dry or overly worn. And because tires are expensive, it's an easy way to stack your bill by hundreds of dollars, especially when you weren't planning on replacing them. If a shop ever pressures you to swap your tires immediately without giving you the choice to see the condition for yourself, chances are it's not your safety they're worried about, it's their pockets. 1. The repaired what you didn't ask for trick. This is the classic bait and switch, and it's the dirtiest move in the shady shop playbook. You bring your bike in for a specific issue. Maybe it's a rough idle or a slipping clutch. They nod, jot it down, and tell you they'll take a look. A day or two later, you get the call. The bike's done, but your bill just ballooned. Why? Because they went ahead and fixed a bunch of things you never authorized. Sometimes it's packaged as preventative maintenance. Other times they'll claim it was urgent and couldn't wait. But here's the catch, they never got your approval. No call, no quote, just a done deal and a padded invoice. You're left with two choices. Argue and risk not getting your bike back without a fight, or pay up and leave feeling ripped off. At best, you overpaid. At worst, you ended up with off-brand parts you never agreed to and a bike that may not even run any better. Any reputable shop will get your sign-off before turning a single bolt. If they don't, that's not a mechanic. That's a hustler with a wrench. Motorcycle shops are smart, but you have to be smarter so you're not ripped off. Has any shop tried one of these tricks on you before? Share your experiences with us in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for more motorcycle videos.